State Line Records is teaming up with Generation Exit Records and 31 Records to kick off the summer with one of the hottest splits of 2025. Experience the raw power of Generation Exit's newest EP, Stay Alive. And with all the fury of Mark Lind and the Unloves, The Oncoming Storm. On June 6th, Austin meets Boston to scorch the earth when these two juggernauts collide. Pre-order the 12-inch vinyl now at StatelineRecords.com and prepare yourself to stay alive for The Oncoming Storm with Generation Exit and Mark Lind and the Unloved.
You're listening to the Struggling Artist Podcast.
People need to be entertained. They need the distraction.
With your host, Trev Allen.
I wish to God that somebody would do something to block out the voices in my head for 5 minutes.
Hello, everybody. Today, our guest is Chris Klink from the band Generation Exit. Chris is a punk rock just veteran legend. He's been in bands like Born to Lose, Nowhere Bound, Generation Exit. Great conversation we had. Such a nice guy. I want to thank him again for coming on. But so let's get into it. Stick around to the end of the episode to hear Generation Exit's a song from their latest EP, which is with a split with Mark Lind and the Unloved. This is episode 351 of the Struggling Artist Podcast. Struggling with Generation Exit. Yeah, man, I'm excited to have you on because, like, I think we tried to get you on when Lifer came out.
I flaked. I tend to be so scatterbrained, and that's not really a valid excuse. Just it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah. No, man, it's cool because I'm the same way, and like I'll reach out to a bunch of people, and then like if someone doesn't get back, then like if someone reaches out to me and I'm like, hey, we're not booking right now, you know what I mean? Right. So like sometimes it just doesn't happen, and we circle back around though, like we did.
Well, it's on me for sure, because we actually talked back and forth about it, and then you once again threw out a calendar, and I was like, yeah, I'll look at it, and then I flaked.
No, it's all right. It happens. No problems over here, man. So, I'm glad I got you on though, because like I said, you got the split with Mark, and we never had you on for Lifer, and like we have to talk about that one. You know what I mean? Like,
by the way, I am such a curmudgeon sometimes. Like, I got an order for Lifer just last night. I woke up this morning. I don't know if I can curse here, but I was just throwing expletives at the wall. Like, somebody ordered your record, don't complain. Just go to the. But like I've taken to like going to UPS these days because like I go to USPS and I could be there for an hour and a half, or 20 minutes, But I never know until I get there. So that's how I started the day. Yeah,
no doubt. So my introduction to your music was Nowhere Bound. Chris, Mark had sent Hearts and Arrows, I think, in the record club.
Yep.
And then I loved it. And then like I remember him and I were talking like a couple years ago. And then he sent me what was the other one? And then he was like, oh hey, you might like this. And he sent me Mockingbirds, which was awesome too. Yeah. So
that was our first fully electric record because it started as an acoustic side project while I was still doing Born to Lose, and Natchet was still doing New Disaster. So it was just sort of like I had some at the time, like we were writing the second to last Born to Lose record, and all I had was a borrowed acoustic guitar. And some of those songs, when I brought them to practice, didn't make the transition to like punk rock. And so it was some tunes I held on to and just kind of set on a shelf. And he somehow heard them, probably because I think he recorded ultimately with the guy I tracked them with or demoed them with. And he contacted me and was like, hey, well, you want to do something with this? And I was like, well, I mean, if you want to help. But, I mean, the whole reason it was called Nowhere Bound was because it was just a side project, and I had no intentions of doing anything with it. And then ultimately, it became both of our primary bands for a good while.
Yeah, because you guys released what, like seven things total?
Six full lengths, 10-inch, a split, and then like an acoustic accompaniment for. I think it was Hearts and Arrows. Just some of the tracks we did on that.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like, so did it go like once Born to Lose ended, you just picked up with this and went full with it, or?
Well, I mean, like I said, there was crossover, but it was only like the acoustic stuff. But I wasn't playing out with Nowhere Bound at the time. Yeah. I mean, Born to Lose, we were touring 5 to 6 months out of the year, so there just really wasn't. I mean, even when you were home. You were looking at the calendar of like, okay, when are we leaving next, and what do we have to get done between now and then? A lot of that's like find a new job, find some cash to pay the rent while you're going to take off again. Yeah. And so it was just sitting on a shelf, and I guess the last 6 months of Born to Lose, me and my buddy Natch just tracked what would be the first record, which was fully acoustic. I don't even think there was any percussion at all. The second one we had some percussion and I think some cello and stuff like that on it, but it was just meant to like be something different. Like, the songs that didn't work in our louder, more obnoxious bands. I mean, that was sort of like the catch-all for it. Yeah. And it's funny because when we were going to do Mockingbirds, we both were like ready to make a loud record again, or a semi-loud record. And he said, well, what are we going to call this? And I was like, no, we're just going to keep it Nowhere Bound. It's a chronicle. But that would prove to be sort of problematic later on when we were booking travels, because promoters would only be able to find these acoustic live videos. And they were like, I thought we were booking a punk rock band. And like, we don't have any videos for that stuff, but check out Mockingbirds. That's what we were booking or whatever. But I don't know. It was nice to have no rules in a band as far as genre specificity, but it was a little problematic when it came to booking and clarifying what the band was live and all that. But
yeah, it's weird. So like, you said something about like, these songs when you first started writing where they weren't like they didn't fit the punk, ethos or whatever, or what typical people would think is punk. Like, it's what I hate, like pigeonholing things, like, you know what I mean, like all the time. And like one of the things I from your music and like, so one of the first things ever, like when I got into like all the stuff going on in Boston in the late 90s, early 2000s, like I was like, this is just like street rock and roll, I guess. Like I didn't know what to call it, like Boston punk, like, or whatever. And like, and I feel like as I branched out and heard other bands like your bands and like bands like the Drowns when they first started out, like I'm like, yeah, these like this is street rock and roll. Like I never really like, I don't know. I mean, it's punk rock, but like anything can be punk rock. You know what I mean? So yeah. I've always kind of felt that way about music, So I'm like, it's all rock and roll, dude.
Yeah, it's same. Like we called Born to Lose punk rock, and then all of a sudden we hit the road and people started calling us street punk. And I was like, okay, if that's if that fits your idea of it. But there was just this. And Mark and all the projects he was doing at the time, but like Boston was a huge, like it became at some point almost like a second home to Born to Lose, because we just hooked up with so many people out of that scene, and and just there was so much great music. I mean, even when we were kind of green as far as knowing what all was coming out of Boston, I mean, you had Darkbuster, you had Ducky Boys. We'll do a few Lins in a row. We'll do Ducky Boys, Dirty Water, Sinners and Saints with both of the Lynn brothers, Blood for Blood on the hardcore. But even they kind of somehow felt more like punk rock with a little hardcore. You know, like when Ramallah came out, I was like, oh no, this is hardcore. But and like we played with Darkbuster in Dallas one night. Like, this band's fucking fantastic. And we were talking to their merch guy. I think his name was Fitzy, but I'm not positive about that. He was like, dude, other than like the Murphys, they're like the biggest draw in Boston, but like no one outside of that regional area really knew much about what was going on there. And then later you had Welsh Boys and what was that band? Left Out in the Cold. Had the Kennedy brothers on the cover.
Oh, the Blue Bloods, yeah.
Blue Bloods.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic band. Like, it was everywhere. Oh, the Scars later on, too. Like, I love those dudes.
It's crazy, because, like, there was this one band I always called the Old Edison. They were like a folk punk kind of. I would call them like Boston's best kept secret. They were like Boston's best kept. Like I was like all these bands deserved like, and that's how I always saw them as like. You have
to leave the 617 area code to just have like a little of everything, and it was all great. Like,
yeah.
Sorry.
No. You're right. So I mean. So you're in Austin. Were you always there in Austin? Like, is that where Born to Lose started and everything, or?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in South Texas.
Okay.
Small city, big town called McAllen, but it was like 7 miles north of the border. We didn't have a punk scene where I grew up. It was sort of freaks and geeks kind of thing. Like, if you didn't fit in, we all hung out together. And so, like, you know, you were waiting for 18 so you could get to a real city, and Austin was this like kind of a hippie art town that like was kind of a secret back then. Like it was cheap as fuck to live here. Like me and three of the guys who are currently in Generation Exit, we lived together for like 5 years, and like we worked 3 shifts a week delivering pizza late at night, and we lived like kings, you know, like and now it's for us, super expensive to live here now. It's probably still not like Northeast prices, but the wages are Texas wages. So, you know. You know, Houston, Dallas, the bigger cities were expensive to live in. But Austin was just this, like, if you were a filmmaker, and we're talking about 90s when some of this stuff was like if you were gay, you felt safe in Austin. You know, and that was not always true throughout Texas. Like a lot of what you hear about Texas is true. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And so like if you were an arty kid who just wanted to like live a slacker life, you know, and be able to afford to pay the rent, this was the place to go.
And just like create and do whatever and
but geographically it's still problematic because like it's 9 hours to get out of the state from Austin going west, about 6 to 8 going east, 6.5 to go north, and 5.5 to go south. And it's not like the second you cross the state line, you're in this cool place. You're still in the middle of nowhere, you know?
Yeah.
So like we had to hit the road.
I was going to say, so hitting the road was like, we got to get out, you know? Yeah.
If you didn't want to just be a Texas band, you had to get out of the state and go far.
Yeah, that's awesome though. That's awesome. Like, so when Nowhere Bound was ending, was Generation Exit, like, did you have that in mind, or did that come later? Did you take a break?
No, the pandemic kind of is what ended. I mean, like, we still consider it hiatus because all of us are still super tight. There's no like drama there at all, but we did the last record, which took forever because, you know, we're doing it all ourselves. Like Clint, our bass player in Generation Exit and formerly Nowhere Bound, is recording it all in his bedroom, mixing, mastering it all himself. So when you've got everybody with different work schedules, it's like you're getting in when you can. And so it took forever, and that record came out November of 19. And we had plans of doing a late spring trip to Europe to promote the record and play it out. And then the whole world closed down. And so it kind of died on the vine. And
so, I mean, it's still there, right, to go back to?
We did a reunion, not this past New Year's Eve, but the one before, because Natchet is living in Spain right now. Him and his wife moved over to Spain. But like, we had those false starts like during the pandemic where it's like, no, everything's soft open, and then nope, we're closed again. And so like a Born to Lose reunion was supposed to happen around that time too. Same thing, it just got shut down because of the protocols and all that stuff. And but we didn't want to lose our practice room, because like if you give it up, and just try and sign up for that same room the next day, it's going to be $200 more than what it was yesterday.
Yeah.
So we were just paying it. And meanwhile, Natch was doing 2 separate projects, like some country Americana and like a kind of sleaze punk band that's super cool called Disco Wolves. Clint was playing with Dustin in like they came from a band called Riddlin' Kids from long ago, a pop punk band, and they were doing stuff like that. Our drummer was playing with both Disco Wolves and a band called the Oxys, which our replacement for Dylan, guitar player, was singing in. So all of a sudden, it was like everybody but me had a bunch of projects, and and it was like the first time in my adult life I'm like, I think I'm not in a band right now, and that was strange.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I guess I'll live with this. And 2 months later, and we sound nothing like this band, but I was like, it's kind of a warm afternoon, and I was sitting outside having some daytime beers on a weekend, and I put on Bishop's Green, whatever their current EP at the time was, and I just got a wild hair and went on, got on Facebook and typed in, anybody want to start a street rock band with me? And by the end of the day, everybody in Generation Exit was
nice.
We had a practice scheduled for a week away, and at that point I was like, well, shit, I guess I better write something.
Write some songs.
Because part of my sales pitch was like, hey, I know you guys are all doing other things. I'll write everything if I have to. I'll do everything if I have to. And they're like, yeah, no problem. But I didn't have anything written. That guitar had been hanging on that hook since the pandemic started. And I was kind of like, oh, shit, well, I better get to work. Wrote a couple of songs for the first practice, and we were kind of working at like a 1.5 song clip for every practice. We get through one, some of the folks have got families, kids and stuff, and so like some would bail early, and then we would start like kind of blueprinting the next tune that was in the tank, and so the next practice we'd run the one we knew and figure out the one we didn't and throw out another one that was not fully without everybody there, and just kind of, so it was like 1.5 songs every practice. And that was the goal for Lifer. It was like, first 10 songs, that's what the record is. Because, didn't matter that if we had been in other bands, we had to come with enough material to play a set. No fucking around for 6 months trying to name a band. Here's four choices, choose one. That's it. Roll. And so, yeah, I mean, but we got it. I guess we started last weekend of September. First week of December, we had Lifer written. Tracked it that. Well, I guess we did pre-production, and then we tracked it in the spring. But the first show was in January, so it was. And what was cool about that is, I told you, like, the beginning, I was like, well, I'll write everything if I have to. By like the 4th practice, somebody showed up with a song. 5th practice, somebody showed up with a song. So it ended up being this cool collaborative thing.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Which just makes for better music,
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like the name of the album by itself, like, Lifer is just like, it's just, it encapsulates a lot of people that I know. Like this is like, just with music, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not a musician by any means, but like, this is my life. Like, you see behind me, like, you know what I mean? Like, you know. So I thought it was like
all the musicians we knew who hadn't made the smarter choice and found a straight life along the way, you know, like those of us who just couldn't let it go.
No, I like that though. I felt like it really, like, the whole album is awesome, and like it just really hits. It's one of those albums too, like after like the first or second listen, like I'm singing along to it. Like I knew what, you know what I mean? Like it just had those hooky parts that like like just sunk in, you know?
Well, when like, again, I'm taking liberties here, but I always thought my favorite, like, street punk, if that's what you want to call it, I think street rock, as you mentioned earlier, is probably a better way to say it, but was like if you took great pop punk hooks and great oi type gang vocal choruses and put them together, so you didn't lose any of the melody, but it was a little rough around the edges at the same time, you know?
It's always had that, like, that little grit, a little rough around the edges to it, and I think that's that's something that comes naturally to, you know, like the musician, but that's what makes it what it is too. Like it's like, oh man, you know, I don't think someone can like just say this is what I'm gonna do. Like it has to come. It's a natural thing. You know what I mean? Like if you force it, it's not gonna sound the same. You know?
Well, yeah, and I can't force. I am without question objectively the worst singer in this band. I couldn't be in a pop punk band if I wanted to because I have a fucked up voice. But, you know, I think deep down I always wanted to be a pop punker, but like I just didn't have the voice for it. So,
yeah.
and I tend to write a little bit unradio friendly from time to time. But,
right.
Otherwise, man, sign me up.
Yeah.
Melodies books a lot.
So, when did you start writing "Stay Alive"? Like, when was the idea for getting that out there?
Well, by the way, I watched the interview you did with Mark. It aired yesterday, I guess.
Yeah.
So he, I think, sent me the same demos he sent you. I can't remember if it was early summer or
yeah. It was right around then. Yep.
It was 10 songs, right? And you know, he was like, "Hey, what do you think?" You know, so I took the time and I listened song to song, and was like, "Hey, man, this could be on a Dirty Water record. This could be on a Lynn
I
record.
did the same
This could be on a Ducky Boys record." You know, like it was all positive. Like I wasn't like
right.
It was all good. So like I was like offering lip service, but like I loved it all. And you know, like, but for me, it was cool just to know that he was up to something. You know. And he hit me up in late November, and he had just come out of the studio, and he had just priced 7 inches and was like, "Yikes!" You know.
Yeah.
So he was like, "Hey, do you guys by any chance have any unreleased songs kicking around?" And I was like, "Well, yeah. I mean, we got about 7, but they're all in various stages of half baked. Like, we had." Like phone recordings, like you know, from the practice room, but none of them were lyricked. None of them were finalized arrangement wise or whatever. And again, he's done, or he had to do mastering, but he's
right.
I'm like, yeah, bro, but when are you wanting to release? And originally, I think he wanted to tie it in with Inauguration Day. Now, obviously, vinyl that wouldn't have probably even been possible if he had shipped out at that time, but like
right
digital release, I think he was shooting for like January 20th, and I was like, oh shit. So I went to practice that week, and you know, we had done a trip to Europe, and they had offered, and it was like late September to early October, and they had said, well, hey, same time next year, and we were all like, yeah. But I mean, when we got back, I was like, look, guys, and April, we can't come without a new release. Like, but a year to write, record, DIY, release, get vinyl pressed, that's a really tight deadline for a full length. So I was kind of proposing a long EP at the time. and as it turns out, that tour is not going to happen until spring of 26, so it didn't matter. But so it was kind of perfect timing, really. Like, it was an abbreviated timeline for like finishing the writing and recording, but we knew it would be out ahead of September.
Yep.
And as long as Mark could summon patience enough to like let us get all the groundwork and the let's be honest, the important shit done, it was going to work. And he was like, yeah, look, man, this is my idea is January 20th, but if that doesn't happen, it's fine. And I think we probably turned it in first week of February, or like to him or whatever. But, it's Clint does great work behind the board, but I mean, he's still a musician first. And so, a producer is going to know his favorite presets, going to know all that stuff, whereas Clint's just got to try
tinker with it.
Yeah. So late November is when we found out about it. Turned it in about February, but
that's pretty good.
Well, it was a relief because he said EP, but he wasn't specific, and so I was like, I guess we probably do 5, maybe 6 songs, and then he turned in or showed me that he had 4, and I was like, okay, we only have to do 4 songs, so that made it. Each song adds at least a couple of weeks when it comes to the mix and mastering part. The tracking part goes pretty quick for us, but it's figuring out all the pro stuff that we're Bush League at. It takes longer.
So you've known Mark for quite a while then, huh? Because I remember when Generation Exit became a thing, he was the one that he was like, hey, do you remember Nowhere Bound? I'm like, yeah. And then he had showed me like when your album was coming out, and I was like, well, I'll check it out. And then I think you had 2 singles out before the record dropped, right?
Yeah, it was. We kind of rushed out early singles because we were gonna unofficially. We weren't on any of the official shows, but we were doing Punk Rock Bowling.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, let's at least get 2 halfway mixed, and we handed out download business cards while we were there, kind of thing.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, that's right. Time wise, anyway. Sorry. The question was.
Yeah. So you've known you and Mark have known each other for a while.
Oh man, well, he got Born to Lose signed. I mean, straight
really?
up got us signed. We had been a band Born to Lose started in 2000, and we had been grinding it out, booking our own tours and putting out our own CDs at the time. And our very first tour, we went east, and we never made it up to Boston, but we played in Danbury, Connecticut, a place called Empress Ballroom, and Far From Finished was on that show, and that was the night we met those guys, and we just partied until we both had to get in our separate vehicles and part ways that evening, and but we did the let's exchange contacts, if you ever come south, we'll help you book a show, and vice versa. I don't think Kanata expected us to contact him as quickly as we did, because it was we got home, and the plan was we go East Coast, and then we'll go West, because we had done maybe 3-week-long tours at that point, but at that point we were doing 6 weeks or whatever, and so the first one was East Coast, and then we kind of worked our way through the Rust Belt and went from Chicago south back to Texas. And the plan was to go west after that, but we had such a good time on the East Coast. We're like, well, let's just fucking do that again, and then we'll go west. And hit Mark Kanata up, and we're like, hey, remember we talked about exchanging shows? Well, we're going to try and be in Boston around this time. What can you do? And I think he was kind of like, oh, shit. I guess I got to do something now. And we played in Quincy at the Beachcomber. And, there's always that, tour van music, I don't know what, this guy is playing his favorite band, and this guy's playing, and it just sort of becomes the soundtrack.
Yeah.
The tour van, and like anything that Lynn Brothers had their hands on was always playing in the tour van. And we were about halfway up the East Coast when we figured out that Far From Finished, Lynn was filling in on bass at the time. And so we get to the Beachcomber. Like, I think we were all a little too fanboy to like go find Mark and be like, "Hey, buddy," you know, like new buddy. But you know, Steve, Mark, and Paul and the rest of us were just like, you know, sitting at the bar chewing the fat, and it was probably like 5-6 band bill, but the headliner decided they wanted to go on a 10, like night of kind of thing. The band was called Big Bad Bollocks. That was the name of the band. And Mark comes over, meeting Canado, is like, "Oh yeah, they want to have like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. I'm a guest here. This is my first time." But they played a headliner set, meaning they did at least an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not thinking anything of it, but I see Steve and Mark, and they look really stressed. I'm like, "What's up, dudes? What's the problem?" They're like, "Man, they're playing a little long." I'm like, whatever, you know. It's like they went on at, let's say, 10, I think. I was like, "What's the big deal?" They're like, "Dude, this in Quincy bars close at 1." I was like, "Oh shit."
Yeah.
Maybe this was a problem. Because I mean, it was 11:30 when we're having this conversation, and they're still going.
Yeah.
And so we kind of got together, huddled, and we're like, "All right, what gear can we like backline?" And I don't even think we changed breakables on like the drum set. Like if somebody was particular or had a better rig on guitar or bass, that was what was chosen. But
yeah,
basically, so we could just literally set change as quick as possible. And like we went on right at midnight and played 25-minute set, and then 10-minute changeover. Far From Finished played a 25-minute set. And you know, the place was great, like just a wonderful audience. And this is before social media. This would have been probably, I want to say 04 or 05. Probably 05. Yes, it was 2005. And so it was pre-social media and pre-smartphones. So like a few days later on the road, you know, we had probably a GeoCities website. I don't know what it was, but probably, you know.
Yeah.
Like one of those
Angel Fire. Yeah.
You know, and I think it was our merch guy was like, "Holy shit, Mark Lynn wrote in our guest book." It was like, "Really?" And so like we're probably all crowding around the computer. And somebody else's computer, because we were on the road and we didn't have computers back then.
Right, yeah. No one had a computer in their pocket, you know, like we do now.
No. Or even the full one in the backpack, you know. So, and it was just really kind comment. It was something along the lines of like, "Hey, that's the best set I've seen in a long time. I'm starting this label, and I want you guys on it if you're down." And we had talked to a couple of labels prior to that, but it was one of those things where it was like, are we even better off? And it wasn't about money. It was just kind of like the plan kept changing, and it was just, man, I think this is probably not the way to go. So we just were still independent. But all of us were such fans of Mark's. We were like, "Look, yes, just yes." And you'd have to ask him, but I think he couldn't get the distribution going or something. But like we went home from that tour, wrote and recorded Sweet Misery in 3 months total. Like I'm pretty sure we probably spent 2 months writing and then a month recording. Like at Ben's house in Texas summer. Like I was in his hallway with mattresses, sort of like that was the only soundproofing. So I would come out of there looking like Danny DeVito climbing out of the couch on Always Sunny, just like soaking wet, you know. Like it was like 100 degrees with no circulation, you know, kind of thing. And we sent it to Mark, and he's like, "All right, so guys, I couldn't get the distribution going, but I'm going to take you to Thorpe." And because that's what, I guess, 3 Chords and the Truth was on Thorpe. And And that was actually when Andy from Thorpe was breaking it up to where he was starting to sign punk rock bands in addition to hardcore. So that's when Sailor's Grave was born, and it was like Thorpe would hold on to all the hardcore, and Sailor's Grave would be like the imprint for the punk bands. And yeah, he basically just said, look, Andy, sign this band. And when I tell you that was a life changer for all of us, it wasn't just about being signed. I mean, it was cool to share a roster with a lot of the bands that were on there. But they also licensed their stuff to Germany to a label called People Like You. Actually called I Used to Fuck People Like You in Prison Records.
Yeah.
But the shorthand was People Like You.
Yeah, right.
Our bass player at the time, well, all of us, if we're being honest, huge Roadhouse fans. So, like, when we heard that label name, we're like, no shit. And then found out it had nothing to do with that. But, and I found that out. The year later, I had a Sidekick. So I had a semi-smartphone.
Right.
They all made fun of me, like, why you got this teenage girl phone? I was like, fuck you, I got the internet, and there's a keyboard on here. But, yeah, we found out that we were on People Like You from my Sidekick. That opened the door for us to travel overseas. And
that's awesome.
And, like, we didn't really have much of a relationship with Andy at Thorpe and Sailor's Grave other than to, like, order CDs before a tour and that kind of stuff. But conversely, Andre, who was the owner of People Like You, he took a shine to us, and they were just so kind to us. Like, the end of every tour, he'd be like, no, you're coming to my house for a barbecue. It's not what we in Texas call, but if they're grilling outside in Germany, it's a barbecue.
Yeah.
But, like, you know, and he would always ask me bands, like, hey, have you heard any good bands I should check out? You know, like, yeah. And I'd go down the list. Usually production was somewhat problematic, but, like, we just had a really tight relationship with him. And, I mean, we had been trying to figure out, like, how the hell do we book a trip to Europe? Never could figure it out. And here in comes this Sailor's Grave deal that opened all those doors for us. And he wouldn't give us a recording advance, so we just kept recording ourselves. But in lieu of a recording advance, he would buy our plane tickets over there. And there was 5 of us. So it was basically around $5,000, which was what indie labels who might have had interest in us might have given us on the high side for recording anyway.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it changed our lives. I mean, and that's all from meeting Mark Lind while he was filling in with Far From Finished at the Beachcomber in Quincy. I mean,
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Just, I mean, I think he gets annoyed because I just tell this story all the time, and he's like, "Wasn't that big of a deal? You guys were a good band." Like,
I know. That's totally him too. He's like, I don't want credit for that. Like,
look, we were a decent band for 5 years. It wasn't until you were like, "Hey, sign this band," that things changed. You know?
Yeah. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So it's kind of like a full circle moment, I feel like, right? Like with this band now and with his latest project, you know what I mean? To be able to put out a split together. Yeah, that's cool, man. That's why I love music so much. Like, there's a lot of this. Like, there's a lot of these connections here. You know what I'm saying?
It makes the world so much smaller, and like whatever rung on the ladder we were clinging on to in those days, there was just a lot of cool bands from different parts of the country. First time I met Linsky, I told you we did East Coast twice. First West Coast, we were in Pomona, and this guy Gonzo did a lot of promoting and still does, I think, in Pomona. And like we rolled in, like, you know, when you play LA, you often play like a bunch of shows in that area because it's so big. That you're, you know, in your case, a state or two away. Yeah. You know, like distance wise or whatever.
Right.
And we were like, hey man, we don't have a place to crash. Can we show up early? He's like, yeah, I got this. He had like even if I say legit kind of Hot Topic, that sounds insulting and I don't mean it to, like a punk rock shop, like sold like Lonsdale gear and like, you know, a lot of like skinhead gear and punk rock gear, bondage pants, all that stuff, and had like a little record section in the back. But he like greeted us on this like main street. He had like a ice chest full of Coronas. He's like, and he's kind of like I don't know if you ever saw Blood In, Blood Out, but he was like Miklo, like half.
Oh yeah.
But like he grew up like tough fucking hard streets kind of thing.
Yeah.
So he had the accent, but just like looked more like me than he did,
right?
You know, Mexican or whatever.
Yeah.
But like had a punch dagger like on the top of the toilet. We're like, man, we don't want to fuck with this. He had like a scar across his face. Apparently gotten stabbed in the face or some shit. We're like, I'm glad this guy likes us, man. This is totally the other way. But the next night is when we had the show. And I think the venue was called Characters, but it was like right next door to his shop. And like we walk in there and for load in late afternoon, early evening, and Linsky walks in and he's like, hey, any of you guys know where the fuck I can find the Born to Lose dudes? And we're like,
yeah. And
like we were opening, they were headlining, and there were like local LA bands in the middle. He's like, oh, fucking Mark from Far From Finished said you guys are fucking brothers, so that makes us brothers, you know?
Yeah.
And it was like, what? Like, you know, because we were already fans of the Falcons, you know? Like, but that's how it was back then, to your point, of like, there was just this sort of like, Angel City Outcasts would be on that list. Rat City Riot from San Diego would be on that list. Band called Guns on the Run from Philly. Far From Finished, Falcons. Like, I'm leaving too many out, but like that we were all kind of running the same, like playing the same venues, sleeping on the same floors or couches, even if we weren't doing
at the same time. Yeah.
And we would try to hook up for a week or two, like together on the road before we parted ways. But like it was the Briggs were already reaching and grasping at that next rung on the ladder, you know, like rightly so.
I was a huge Briggs fan.
Same.
But,
but it was just this group of probably 5 to 10 bands that we were just all like tight in that same way that Mark said, well, we're family because they say you're family, you know. Like, that's how it was. Like you couldn't wait to meet the next band that you were already playing in that van soundtrack, you know, like. But it was, I mean, we were all broke and poor and starving and having the same best time, but not advisable life choices at the same time, you know? Like,
right.
And so there was this bond immediately, like, oh, I know how you live and you know how I live, and everyone else either thinks we're rock stars or stupid, but they don't understand that the in-between is where it really resides, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's so good. That's the first time someone's ever kind of like talked about that here, so... You know, like that community that's there, you know, like, I mean, there's community everywhere, but like what you're saying, like, you know, like you didn't even have to, you could just pass in passing, you know what I mean?
In this band, we're friends, you know?
Yeah, like, exactly. That's cool.
And what was super cool is most of those bands ended up on that German label. So, like, I've played probably more shows with Linsky than any other band, but I've never played with him in Jersey. Never.
Yeah.
He was just on the road 9 months out of the year. We thought we were like putting in the time, and he was putting everybody to shame. But like, you know, we'd end up playing shows with them in Europe again, sometimes kind of for a week or two, or sometimes it was just a one-off. But like those same bands that all this was happening in the States got exported to Germany and Europe around the same time on the same label.
That's great.
So we just ended up like the tradition carried on, you know. Only now there were some non-English speakers who joined that club.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, are you guys touring now at all, or just
Not
little
like
things here and there?
Little things, like we did 3 weeks back, like in September, Germany and Czech Republic, and we've done 2 unofficial punk rock bowling via. I should plug the organization Punk Rock Saves Lives. They do like a lot of great things for the punk community, whether it's rehab, mental health, like just a lot of like they've got their 501c like charitable designation because it's absolutely what they are. And so they're the ones who invited us to Vegas. We did that 2 years in a row, and they had another show in Denver, benefit. We're trying. Yeah, I was talking to Mark about this release specifically. Like, I got a friend in Montreal that's been trying to book us at this point over the course of 3 separate bands. He always used to come down for South by, and like he works for a club, and so they would send him here to like scout bands during South by Southwest. And I think the first, say, 3 years he was going out to shows, but after that he was just like, man, I'm having a hard time. Like, I'm turning bands away at this point. Like, I don't need the scouting report, but they were paying to send him anyway. So the two of us would just end up hanging out all week, catch a show here and there, but like largely just hanging out like friends. And he's like, man, if you ever make it to Canada, and like I've played music at this point, excluding the U.S., in 17 different countries, but I've never played Mexico and I've never played Canada.
Yeah.
Which is kind of ridiculous. But I was talking to Mark, and I was like, look, man, maybe we could do a show in Boston, because like I've still got a lot of friends up there, and like arguably this is the vehicle often that allows me to see friends no matter where they're at.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I don't have to put a band together, and I'm like, God damn it, come on, man, like let's do it. like it's one night, bro. Like we'll try and do that Montreal thing, like make it a long weekend or something. But like,
yeah.
So I don't know. I can't say that's in the works, because that's not accurate. But I want it to be in the works.
Right. Yeah, I'd love to see you guys up here. You know.
Well, it's just like everybody's got families and day jobs, and no one's willing to lose all that the way we all were back in our 20s.
Right. Yeah, we're older now too. You know.
I mean, I probably would, but I don't have anything like tethering me down. You know, somebody had watched the dog while I was away, but that's really all I got to worry about, and that's not everyone's situation. So I guess it's old man kind of travel these days.
Yeah.
It's to say sporadic at best.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, if you guys make your way up somewhere in the Northeast, let me know. I would love to come check you guys out. And you know, I'm like you. I don't have a whole lot tethering me down. So if it's like, you know, if it's in New York and I can get there, I'll get there. You know.
Well, you know, honestly, we'd probably end up in Albany before we'd end up in NYC, just because. I don't know, man. Every time we played New York City, it was just sort of like it was random. Like.
Hey, Albany's only like an hour and a half for me, so.
Yeah. No, I mean, that was, like, Mark would be included in that, like, brother conversation, but by that point, and again, he can correct me if I'm wrong, but by that point, he was pretty much only traveling regionally. Like, so I think we did a show, and it was this place called Valentine's in Albany. I heard it closed now, which sucks. But we played with Ducky Boys once there, and with The Unloved once there. But I think by that point, he was keeping it regional. Like, I don't think he was doing any, like, full, even, like, one side of the coast kind of tours anymore.
Yeah.
But, again, I could be wrong about that, but I think that's correct. But, yeah, I mean, so we had friends in Albany, and that would just, like, again, if I could just hit Chicago, Boston, Albany, a couple places in California and Arizona, and a handful of other places, I would do it in a heartbeat. But the problem is you got to drive and play a whole bunch of in-between stops. And so and I don't even have a van anymore. None of us do. You know, in our 20s, we all pooled together, always had like some sort of shit-ass tour van that would at least get us where we needed to go.
Right.
But, I mean, at this point, we'd be renting a van, like, and I'm talking about, like, star patterns all over the U.S., so it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But, again, like, just some family-type friends spread out all over here that I would find any and every excuse to have a visit, even if it's under the banner of a show or whatever. But
yeah, right on, man, right on. That's awesome. It's awesome. So when does the split come out again? The date, the 6th, June 6th.
Unless there's some sort of problem with the mail,
Okay.
Well, my understanding is that it's supposed to ship to us this week.
Okay.
And I'm sure it'll take a lot longer than the test pressings, but when Mark, this time, Mark was handling all of the dialogue with Pirates Press, which was great. I didn't have to tell him what paper stock to use, because I do graphic design for a living. I think I know what I'm doing, but it's just these codes that mean nothing to me, and so he did all that kind of legwork. And so he's the direct contact as far as that goes. And he was like, hey man, test pressings went out. He sent me a tracking number, and they were here 2 days later from Czech Republic.
Yeah.
I don't anticipate that a full order is going to get here that quick, but I was kind of shocked. He sent me the tracking number. They shipped out on a Tuesday, and we're here on a Thursday. Actually, he got his a day late because he's got held up in customs, but ours got here 2 days later, and I was, so we'll see. And shout out to Pirates, because my understanding is they're covering the tariffs. Right?
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And none of us were planning on, and I don't know if Czech is 10% or 20%. I mean, whatever the idiot in charge has put it at these days. But when you're doing the math, and then all of a sudden you got to add 10%, 20% to what's already a pretty hefty bill.
Right. Yeah.
That's like real money all of a sudden, and I was a little concerned, but he said, no, they're covering it, at least for now. So
that's cool. That's awesome. Yeah. He goes through them a lot for records when when he was doing bands on the label and stuff like that. So it's always good quality too. It's
they do good work, and so we had Nowhere Bound worked with a German label called Ring of Fire Records. Really great dude who runs it, and he had a pressing. He doesn't have a pressing plant, but he had a pressing plant he worked with in Germany that were also cheap. But whenever I did a Google search for pressing records, Pirates was by far the cheapest. I've got so many of their official releases.
Yeah, me too.
What they can do with whether it's colored vinyl, I got a Drown 7-inch where all the text is on the outer sleeve, just do such cool kind of production and packaging, and still manage to be cheaper than most that I've found here in the States anyway. And so I get it. That's likely why he's worked with them for so long, because even if they're not interested in signing the band or whatever, they just do great work.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, all right, so it comes out on June 6th. This will drop the Monday after, so that'll be a good reminder for people who didn't pre-order it through the ad I did for you guys.
No, thank you for that.
Yeah, man, it's not, I'm not the best at making those things, but I like doing the voice and the copyright and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So that was fun to do. I wanted to give it that 90s TV compilation vibe,
Yeah.
So that's where I went with that one. But yeah, man. So so this will drop on the 9th, and the album's already out. Where can people? Do you guys have a website where people can buy the record from you, or just?
We're gonna have it up on Bandcamp now. See,
okay.
I mocked up sort of the variants for Mark, but I got a buddy who's gonna come over when we actually have them in hand. He's got a photo light box or something, so we can get. You never know what the actual pressing is gonna look like.
Right.
And but the short answer to your question is no. I bought a domain, and once it gets to the web stuff, it's sort of over my skill set and head.
Yeah.
And so we've got a Bandcamp. we'll have, and like him, we'll have a few copies of all the variants.
Yep.
But, you know, our primary stash will be our variant or whatever. But, you know, Mark was initially, it was like everyone's going to have their own variants, which is still largely the case. But, you know, I told him, I was like, hey, man, because, like, I wanted the variant that ultimately he's gonna do, and he didn't steal it from me. My own band did. Like, meaning, like, they were like, oh, the splatter looks great. I'm like, yeah, but look, this is a half and half.
Yeah.
Like I got a lot of records, man. Not a lot of them are half and half.
I think I only have one that's half and half, and I've got the Welch Boys, and is a Bone Crusher split? That's a half and half. Actually, it's three. It's orange, white, and green.
What have I got? I've got Against Me. Which one? The one with the fucking cat on the front.
New Wave?
Yes, New Wave.
Yeah.
Half and half.
That's a good
Wave.
fucking album. That's a good album.
A half and half on a 10-inch Swinging Utters. Maybe Wildlife. Like, I don't know. Like, probably 10 tops in my
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I got a Blind Atom in the Federal League half and half, too.
Okay.
I forgot I had that. Yeah. That's a good one, too. Yeah. So, yeah. That's cool, though. That's awesome. So, yeah. So you guys have a little bit of every. Well, you have your main one, and then you have the other ones too, or whatever. So.
Right. There'll be a half and half electric blue, black. Ours is electric blue with black splatter, and then Randy at 31 Records is electric blue with white splatter. So
cool.
Those will be the variants.
All right. So Generation Exit on Bandcamp. Head there to grab a copy. Where can people find you guys on social media?
We're on Facebook. I don't really much do Instagram, but I know that somebody else in the band kind of handles that. I feel like one of them might have started a TikTok, but I doubt very seriously they've put any material up there. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Yeah.
But and then YouTube, we've got like Ben, formerly of Born to Lose, but the rhythm guitar player with Generation Exit. His wife did like lyric videos for the Lifer stuff.
Oh, cool!
Solicited, and she did like interviews with the band on all the songs on Lifer. So like, you know, everyone's different perspective, all the songs.
That's cool.
But I felt like it was a bit much to like hit her up and be like, hey, you want to do all the same stuff with this?
Yeah, with another one? Yeah.
It's way easier.
Cool. Oh man, Chris, this was awesome. I'm happy I finally had a chance to get you on. Come back when there's another project, or if you just want to come back and just bullshit, let me know. We'll have you back on.
Hey man, you want to talk records? You want to talk punk rock? Whatever. I mean, I'm in. I don't ever leave the house, so I'm always around.
Right on. All right, man. We'll check you out later.
All right. Thanks for having us. Cheers, man.
All right, and that's the show. I want to thank Chris again for being today's guest on the Struggling Artist Podcast. In the show notes, click the link. You'll see all things for Generation Exit. I want to give a shout out to Chris Chavez, Jeff Bousquet, and Aria Rad for being part of the Struggling Artist Podcast team. Check them out over on Instagram. You can find Chris at 716 The Sound, Jeff at JRB Image, and Aria at Coffin_salesman. Thank you to Mark over at State Line Records for being sponsors of the podcast. Head to StatelineRecords.com. See what Mark has. The split is out now. He has it now. Go there and pick it up. It is so good. Thank you to the band Loser Circle for always letting us use their song, The Great Illusion of Time, off their album Took Long Enough. I love you guys so much. Thank you for letting us always use that tune. Check them out. If you haven't already, maybe this is the first time you've heard the podcast. Go to our website, podcasttsa.com or strugglingartistpodcast.com or thestrugglingartistpodcast.com. Under sponsors, you'll see a link to Loser Circle's Bandcamp, where you can pick up the album. If you like the introduction, we use like a 45-second clip of the song. You'll love the whole album. Thank you again to Loser Circle. Hello, everyone over at Patreon who contributes. Thank you so much for being patrons. If you want to see what we have going on over there, head over to patreon.com/podcast TSA. Contributions go to fund projects, fund shows that we put on, and who knows what else it could fund in the future. I thank you all for being over there. Everybody who listens to the podcast, I want to thank you so much for doing that. If you send it to a friend, if you hear a band you like and you decide to subscribe or all that, whatever that stuff goes, thank you so much for doing that. Really, seriously. If you reach out to us, you can reach out to me, Trev at thestrugglingartistpodcast.com. What the fuck? Trev at thestrugglingartistpodcast.com. I don't know why I said it like that. I'm leaving that in. Anyway, you can also reach out to us on the hotline. 774-570-1552 is the number to text or call if you want to leave us a voicemail. Again, that number is 774-570-1552. Shoot us a text, man. I'm lonely on that phone. That phone doesn't ring often, so I won't answer it. You can leave a voicemail. I won't answer it, I promise. All right, it's time to get out of here with a song. Chris was kind enough to give us a track off of their latest, Stay Alive. It's an EP split with Mark Linden, The Unloved. You can find it on vinyl at StatelandRecords.com. This is the title track, Stay Alive. Until next week, take care of yourselves. We'll talk to you then.
Well of inspiration reeks of boredom, weight of uninspired pins. Wordless paper seeks to drown on shore so slim. World is better off if you just stay long enough to face these days.